Yeah, I want what we used to get out of Nintendo, which was an ecosystem that made you want to stay in it.
Yeah.
Not like just dip your toe in it and then run away screaming because it's so terrible.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to A Conversation with Colin. I'm Greg, and this is my roommate, Colin. Now, sometimes Colin says crazy stuff, so thanks to your support over on patreon.com/kindafunny, we're back for one final season where I reach into my random topic pile, pull one out, throw it at him, and then we talk it out.
Jesus Christ, I'm mad.
I got a lot of pent-up anger, a lot of pent-up throws in me. Oscar! If you like that, like the video. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Share us with your friends. Support us on patreon.com/kindafunny. Colin, are you ready?
Yes.
Today's topic of conversation is Nintendo. Submitted by @Reggie_NOA. Nintendo.
Reggie.
Where do you want to start with this giant topick of Nintendo?
I don't know. This could be a whole season of conversation with Colin.
Let's start in the very beginning. You were a Nintendo kid growing up.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
why?
Well, I mean, that's why I started playing video games was because of Nintendo.
Okay.
And enjoyed my NES very much, and that's just what we had. So it wasn't like an active choice. I was too young to make a choice like
Sure.
that. But then, as the NES era wore on and the SNES came out, and that was what I was. It was a Nintendo person, and
Right.
I looked at Sega and I looked at Genesis, and Master
And you're like,
was,
man, I wish
Master
I could
System
go
was
there.
just an abysmal piece of
Ghost
shit.
House.
But Genesis was a joke.
Yeah.
And
Wait, Genesis wasn't a joke.
yeah, it was. It was a huge
No,
joke.
come on now.
And,
Come on now. You know
wa-
I'm a Sega kid. Don't go there. Genesis is the one like bright light
I'm not
I
here
got.
to handle your feelings with kid gloves, Greg. It's like Genesis was this secondary machine, this machine that had some good games on it, but Super Nintendo just trounced it. There's been really few
That's
examples.
a good definition. That's not a joke. That's a good definition of the Genesis.
It was a pretty subpar console compared to its competition. I'm sorry to tell
It's
you.
okay.
But as time has gone on, Nintendo has become this company that has done nothing but disappoint me.
Right.
And I was thinking about Smash Brothers that just came out on Wii U. It's a great game. It's a lot of fun. Really, really great game.
We love playing it.
But it's very indicative of what Nintendo is. It's a fighting game based on a fighting game that came out on the N64 with characters, none of which are really new, except for maybe that guy from Xenoblade.
Yeah.
And it's played with GameCube controllers. So it's played with controllers that are from not the last console, but 2 consoles ago. And basically, that's everything you need to know about Nintendo right now. Yeah.
Wait, I mean, is it just that they lost their way at Wii? And here's my main thing too. I talk about all the time with Nintendo is that I think right now they are what they've always been. This is very much like Denny Green talking about the Chicago Bears. We are who they thought they were. You know what I mean? Like, this is a toy company. They're making toys for the people who like their toys.
Right.
And everybody's like, well, why don't you support third parties? Why don't you try to compete? And they're like, we don't give a shit about that. What makes money for us is Smash, is Mario, is Zelda. That's what we'll put out.
Yeah,
That's what the system we're building.
But they did give a shit about that and back in the day, and that's why the consoles that were, NES third-party support was so strong that they had to limit publishers to publishing only 5 games a year. And like what a lot of people don't realize is that shell companies like Ultra came up. Ultra is the one that published Metal Gear, for instance.
Because it was a Konami show.
It was a shell of a Konami, and now so Konami can release more games because people were so eager to work with Nintendo. Now the formula behind working with Nintendo was difficult. You had to buy cartridges from them. They made a ton of money. You didn't get a huge cut. There was a huge quality control thing, which was a relic of trying to fix what happened with Atari, which was a lack of quality. And SNES had extraordinary third-party support, both exclusives and obviously cross-platform.
But that's how far
games.
you have to look back. Then you jump to N64 and it all goes to hell.
Because it was with N64 that they started making really weird decisions.
Yeah.
And the weird decisions just never stopped. And that's kind of where they are right now. Now, the N64 was a great console. That was my secondary console. I mean, I was a PlayStation guy at that point.
Yeah.
I had my N64 for the Zelda games. I loved weird games like Hybrid Heaven.
The wrestling games.
I didn't play the wrestling games, but
Oh, what a surprise.
the Mario sports games and all these,
Sure.
Mario Party, and there was a lot of great games on it.
Yeah,
But I even liked Castlevania 64, which a lot of people pan. But this is when they started making weird decisions. They wanted cartridges, which developers didn't want to make games for. That made the games more expensive. They were harder to develop. They couldn't hold anything compared to like what a CD would hold. And you had to have one cartridge. I mean, think about Final Fantasy VII, which was over multiple CDs, discs. The black bottom PlayStation discs.
Yeah.
And None of that would have fit. Like the first 10 minutes would have fit on an N64 cartridge. You know, why would a developer in the mid 90s, want to make anything for that console?
No load times.
Yeah, that was the big thing. There's no load times. Well, there's nothing to load. So that was also a big thing of why that was it. But then with GameCube, they kept making strange decisions. Like, all right, now we're gonna have little CDs.
Yeah, here's a handle on it.
And it's like, why? Why not make a DVD player or do something? It's like it's so weird.
Yeah.
You know. And now, granted, the GameCube controller, and I've said this before, is my favorite controller of all time. I love that controller.
And again, that's only because you're playing Nintendo games on it, I think.
Right. Well, this was a time when dual analog sticks were a thing. Obviously, I mean, there was a dual analog sticks even on PlayStation. You know, Metal Gear and a lot of these games. Ape Escape, like you had to use the DualShock. But we weren't playing games quite the way we were today, where you were constantly manipulating the camera and everything you were playing. So like the C stick wasn't really a big deal. Now, obviously, that controller wouldn't have worked today.
Yeah.
So that was a weird console. Now, I actually adored the GameCube.
Sure.
Like, I liked N64, but I actually adored the GameCube. Like, I had a ton of GameCube games and really, really liked playing it.
But you had a lot of great Nintendo exclusive GameCube games.
Yeah, there were. And there were third-party games on it. Like Resident Evil 4 and Beautiful Joe. You know, like, there were big games on it. Now, those came to other consoles eventually, even though they totally lied
about
I'll
that. Cut my head off before this comes.
And he's still walking around. He just released
still got a head.
He released the Evil Within. But then it came to Wii, and you'll remember me during the early Wii era.
Oh my God, what a Nintendo fanboy this kid was.
Because I was still, I always had, so during the GameCube, and I'm sorry, this conversation is going on a little longer than me.
I'm sure the viewer is pissed.
But I had let's go back. I had an NES, and then I had an SNES, and then I bought a Genesis later, like in high school.
Sure.
I bought it on eBay, right?
That's what I did with my SNES.
And then with the next generation, I had a PlayStation, then I bought an N64, so I had them both, right?
Yeah.
But this particular era was the first time I had everything. I got a PS2 at launch, a GameCube at launch, and then an Xbox in the summer of 2002. I bought it for KOTOR. I think it was 2002, it might have been 2003. And so I had everything. And I always went back to GameCube, but I had most of my games on PS2. And when we went to the next generation, I was a poor college kid again, and I wanted a Wii. I couldn't find one. I was a senior in college. I finally got one when I moved to San Francisco in like the summer of 2007, and I bought everything on the Wii. You know, like I bought my third-party games on the Wii. I play everything on Wii, and a lot of people don't.
Like, are you playing this? You playing that? You're like, no, I'm playing this virtual console game on the Wii. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
And this was before I had my roommate in college had a PS3, and in our last year there, and I couldn't afford that. I wanted one very badly. I didn't get a PS3. I didn't own my own PS3 until the Slim came out. We talked about that on Beyond. Like I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And eventually, like in 2008 or so, I was like, what am I doing?
You like woke up from a dream. You like looked around, like
I'm like
sucks.
This thing sucks. You know, like this Wii sucks. And like, why am I like why do I pretend like I want to play? Like, why am I playing 007 games and like broke ass ports that look like they belong on PS2? Like, why am I doing any of this anymore?
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of broke, and that's when my anger towards what Nintendo was doing to me really came to the fore, because I loved this company, and I still love this company, and they still make amazing exclusive games, including on Wii. God, Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary game. You know, Brawl. I love Brawl. Like Mario Kart. I mean, Mario Kart sold tens of millions of copies.
Yeah.
But they don't speak to me anymore, and that's just me. And a lot of people get mad at me about that. But my job is to be honest with the people out there and telling them, like, every once in a while, every like few months or a few times a year, I'll have like an epiphany where I'm like, I really love this game. Like I had it with Smash, and I had it with on 3DS. I had it with A Link Between Worlds, and Mario Golf was really fun and stuff like that. But then I just put it away, and I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore. And I look at Wii U, and I'm like, this underpowered machine with a Fisher-Price tablet and no games,
Yeah.
And then you look at PS4 and Xbox One, and these are hulking machines with great libraries already, and developers want to make games for them because they're not restricted.
See, this is where I think there's that line between you being a Nintendo kid and me being a Sega kid. And since I grew up hating Nintendo, hating Mario, he's trying to take Sonic's glory, I can't stand this guy. I get to this point now, and I see the Wii U tucked away on my little shelf on the entertainment center, and I know I'm only going to turn it on for Smash now. We play a lot of Smash, but before that, Kart, and then before that, nothing. And then looking forward, I don't know,
Zelda?
maybe a virtual Oh yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's literally it. This is the thing that like is really scary about the. I'm sorry.
My final point on my thing is though, and I'm fine with that. That's what I want out of Nintendo. That's what I expect out of Nintendo. You want more, and you expect more out of them.
Yeah, I want what we used to get out of Nintendo, which was an ecosystem that made you want to stay in it.
Yeah.
Not like just dip your toe in it and then run away screaming because it's so terrible. Like that. Like that's the big thing. It's like I want Nintendo to win me back, like more than anything. Like people are like, oh, your PlayStation's your favorite brand. You know, it's like, no, Nintendo is my favorite brand, and they've completely lost me. You know, I played everything on NES and SNES. You know, like I love those games so much, in those first party games, brilliant games. Games that set the tone for everything that came after, whether it's Metroid and Kid Icarus, whether it's Mario, whether it's Super Mario 3, Super Mario World, one of the best games of all time. You know, and really, we were talking about Genesis versus SNES. Like Mario World versus Sonic is a joke. It's a fucking joke.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like
100% true.
Like when you consider like the quality of those games and like what those games are. And it's distressing to me that they just don't get it anymore. But the market gets it, and that's the big thing. Like PS4 has already outsold Wii U. Wii U's, you know, had a year head start, and 2 of its 3 big games are already out. So they should be the games. The system's not going to sell more than GameCube did, which is bad.
Yeah.
And you know, Mario Kart was going to sell all these units. Well, it didn't. And Smash Brothers was going to sell all these units, and it didn't. Especially because they released it on 3DS, which was stupid. And now just if you wanted to move hardware, you should have just kept it as a Wii U exclusive. That would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But that showed us that they didn't believe that it was going to move units, and that's why they put it on 3DS, because there's already all of these 3DSs out there. And now Zelda, which looks extraordinary, is going to come out, and that's the last game that has any prayer of selling a Wii U to a normal person. So I want Nintendo to go back to the drawing board, and this is what they need to do. They need to stop trying to be so different, because it's not working. You know, like we sold a lot of units because it was different, but no one cared. The attach rate was pathetic. People put them away, and the Wii just died. Like, it just was dead. By 2011, it was done.
Yeah,
you know, like
stopped, yeah.
Because you can't capture a casual market like that and then hope to have
to bring them back to GameStop, to give them back to
clearly it didn't
games.
work.
Yeah.
Clearly it didn't work.
Yeah.
So they need to make a powerful piece of hardware that developers want to make games for. They should get a bunch of third parties under contract and use some, like they did. They tried to do with Team Ninja and Metroid. Try to get a lot of third party teams to experiment with their own IP and see what they can come up with. You know, everyone's like, well, I want Mario on PlayStation and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, first of all, that's never going to happen. Sony and Nintendo don't like each other, and that goes back a long ways, like 25 years.
Yeah.
The PlayStation was supposed to be a Nintendo, the SNES add-on, as a lot of people know, and there's bad blood there. I think it would be more likely, actually, that Nintendo would get into bed with Microsoft, but that's a thing for another time. But I don't want that to happen. The best Nintendo is the Nintendo that's innovating it with games and making good hardware that people want to put games on. If you look at NES and SNES, those weren't unconventional. They were just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and that Nintendo's gone.
To get them back on track, which I don't know if they will, but because every time we're like, this is what they should do, they don't do it. They don't listen to us like PlayStation does. Hey, Shu. They should make their next console should be the handheld as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
3DS.
Yeah, we've talked about that many times.
Beam it to the TV. How do I do that? Make
Absolutely.
it work that way. Get a great online and an ID that has all my games attached to it.
The revolution with the Wii U would have been if that tablet could play games by itself. You know,
Yeah.
but it can, but the processing isn't on the tablet, so you can't take it with you.
Yeah.
You know, like that would have been the revolution, and make it so it doesn't feel like you bought it at the toy aisle at Target next to the Legos, because that's like what that thing basically feels like when you hold it.
Yeah.
So, my anger at Nintendo comes from the heart, because I wouldn't be in this industry and wouldn't be playing games if not for them and what they did for me. But what the hell happened? That's a question you have to ask, and that's a question I ask myself literally every day of my life.
All right. Well, thank you, Colin. Ladies and gentlemen, what the hell happened in Nintendo? Let us know in the comments. Share this video with your friend. Support us on Patreon. If you're ever in San Francisco, come to Tempest Bar, which is where we're filming the final season of A Conversation with Colin. If you want to see Colin and I talk about games all the time, go over to youtube.com/kindafunnygames. And I believe that's all the plugs. Buy the shirt at districtlines.com/kindafunny. Go see Kevin on tour, wherever Kevin's touring. And then, watch the Game Over Greggy show and do stuff like that. Until next time, video games.